All right. Kaylin, how are you doing?
I'm
It
good.
is Kellen. I say Kaylin all the time. Anybody listening out there, you got to get to know her, and her name is really Kellen.
Yeah, it's Kellen. But I answer to so many things because I so rarely get Kellen.
Yeah.
That's Keelan, Kaylin, Cameron, Kevin. Got Kevin once.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Whatever. So it's Kellen and Joe here on Youngstown's Talk Channel, and this is your sounding board. So if you're listening out there and you want to get on the program and talk to us and throw your opinions, I want to do something a little crazy, a little weird today. Do you have anything first before I go weirdness?
I mean, I feel like anything I had is now
no,
less interesting.
No. You can have at it. Is there anything that's because this on Fridays you get to vomit all of your stuff. So vomit away.
Well, I mean, we were chatting the other day about music-based conspiracies. We talk sometimes about conspiracy theories, but there's a bunch in like the music industry or like urban legends. And so, do you have any like favorite music-oriented?
Well, I like, especially with people who are into numerology and try to find patterns and recognizes some things. Like you find conspiracy in a lot of stuff, and we like to think that human beings are strategic in that way, but I think a lot of that stuff is very coincidental, and I think there's natural rhythms. Joe goes to crazy town all the time, right?
No, really?
All the time.
Oh, okay.
And there's a lot of our perceptions of what the world is that isn't really real. It's our brain filling in a lot of details that aren't really happening. I guess we're and this actually ties in exactly what I was going to talk about today.
Good.
So
Convenient.
But when we go sciences like this, we kind of lose all of you have deep thought people, multidimensional thinking, and then you have very simple people. So a lot of this doesn't resonate, but I'll try to break it down a little bit. Hey, Denise, welcome back to the program today. And so I think our imaginations are really good at conjuring up a lot of thoughts and those illusions. So when I first started getting involved in like physics and sciences, like one of the first big philosophy came from Einstein. That's why he's on every wall of every office that I've ever been on. And when talking about the speed of light, he was talking about changing your perspective and making things relative to wherever you're at, right? So if you're in a parked car and the car next to you moves, it feels like you're moving because the brain is conjuring up, is it moving relative to me, or I am moving relative to it? So his example, and I want you to remember this and use this not just in physics, but in other things. If you were riding on a train traveling the speed of light, what would things appear? Because in order for you to see things, you have to have light that bounces off an object and either reflects or gets absorbed into that object, and then you see it. But if you're going the same speed as light, there's nothing to bounce off or reflect. So what would things be on the observation standpoint, and also what would they be then on the reality standpoint, the physical standpoint? And so like a lot of times when I'm arguing with people who, hate me or disagree with me or whatever, I try to ride on their train. I try to get on there and say, okay, if I were to feel this way, like what contortions would I have to put myself through in order to see that the same way that they do? Because I have to change the physics in order to get a real observation of what they're seeing. So, because part of you wants to think that they're just too dumb and they just don't see things the same way. They speak a different language. They're just processing things differently. And then getting into their moment, like let's just use an example. Let's just say you didn't live where you lived, right? You live in an urban setting where people are getting mowed down. Your dad is sitting in prison. You just escaped being gunned down by a drive-by. Your worldview and how things are, the reality, would be completely different than somebody's in rural America or someone's in the suburbs or whatever. And so, like, how would you have to feel about, like, we're talking about Social Security or defense or whatever? In your realm, none of that stuff really exists. So even if you have an opinion about it, you don't have a connection with it at all. So, it's helpful every once in a while. And I know the other side will not do this, but I am super interested in having voices from that side. Like, I don't know if it would be minimized or mitigated or whatever those voices are. I still think there's some value in those, right?
Mhm.
They might not be able to carry a great, reason for why they feel like they do. I'd shoot it down in like 32 seconds, but I still love to engage in that side. And I don't know, let you respond to that before I go in deeper into that.
No, I mean, I agree. I don't like this idea that if you hold a different opinion or see something differently, it automatically means you are whatever. You're dumb, you're wrong, you're whatever. I can have so many different assumptions, I guess, because somebody says something differently than what I would say. But yeah, to your point, I too want to be like, okay, well, clearly they are seeing this information in a different way. What are they looking at? Show me where you see that. Show me.
Okay,
what
well,
your
let's go through
experience
it. Let's go through it. Let's just turn it on its head. Right. Look through the eyes of somebody who's viewing it in that way. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's a simple thing. I think there's some foundationally different things, right? So motivations, right? Are you motivated by skewing the conspiracy against you so to give yourself an advantage, right? And so if you felt like the whole world, you've been told your entire life that the world's against you, they hate you, they're trying to take opportunity from you and whatever, how would you orient yourself in the world? How would you,
probably be on the defensive?
For sure. And everything would look like that because you've been told that and you believe that. So everything is that. I mean, there would be no difference. There's a call, so I'm going to take that right away here. 330-595-1600. If you want to get in on the program today, let's get this one going. All right, caller, you are on the line.
Hey, what's up? It's first time caller, long time listener.
Oh yeah. Hey, I had never heard you.
Good morning.
Hi, no, it's Luke. Hey, so I'm sitting here trying to work, and you guys are distracting me because I have you on the computer too. So you're talking about like people saying you're wrong, people saying you're stupid, that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, looking at it through the perspective of somebody who just doesn't feel and see things the way that you do.
Here's my take on this in the world today. There are people who have opinions and there are facts. And people are currently skewing the lines between facts and opinions. And people don't understand when they give an opinion or someone else gives an opinion that it is an opinion and they take it as a fact or they give it as a fact. And therefore that creates so much, not hostility, but just like I'm saying this because I believe, I believe this. And it's not, there's no facts to back it up. Like that's one of the things I'm always saying is, where are you getting your information from? Where is your opinion coming from? Oh, no, this is a fact. Well, how do you know it's a fact? In order to be a fact, you have to say, okay, the sky is blue because this, or the grass is green because this. People don't do that anymore. There's no data. There's no info to back up what they're saying. And then everybody just argues about it. And that's one thing that drives me crazy is when you have people spewing opinions, and not just from themselves, but from the stuff they hear on the radio and on the TV, and then there's no information or facts to back it up.
All right. Well, thank you, Luke, first time caller. Appreciate it, man.
Does that make sense?
It
or
does.
am I too much coffee?
Absolutely. And not only what you said, but they also get angry. They get very angry and passionate about it, even if there's no information to back that up. They're angry at you. If you do have information,
they get angry about it. They'll get angry about it. Like I literally, people on our Facebook page will say like, "This is happening," or "This is what's going to happen," or "This is what this is whatever." And I'll be like, "Okay." And I've seen Joe do it before too. Where are you getting your information from, or where it's coming from? They ignore your question and then just attack. because they can't back it up. And
Yeah.
it's like, I think if people start looking at things closer and start researching more and start doing just like trying to get unbiased information, the world will be a much better place. So there you go. Hey,
All right.
good job, guys.
Yay.
All right.
Thanks for call. I might call. I might call again sometime. I don't know. It just makes me nervous. I'm very shy. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right. And, a difficult portion, what Luke had mentioned too, is that, you want to obfuscate what even a fact or a truth is, right? Depending on whether or not it supports your claim or your opinion or whatever. But see, is there such thing as an objective truth anymore? It's because it's you can go, okay, so let's use flat Earth versus spherical Earth, right?
Mhm.
I can make an argument where I can take an objective truth and make it less objective and more subjective. Okay, and there's a lot of people would say, no, it's settled. As long as you have agreement, then it's settled in that agreement. Before I go deeper, Jody says it's troubling how many people are not willing to get into someone else's brain, onto someone else's train, and at least understand their journey. I think as a society, we've become unwilling to look at the other side of the coin. Yeah, that's absolutely the fact. We're not any good at it, and we're getting worse at it. And then Stephanie says, real lack of critical thinking going on these days, and understanding that two facts can be true of a situation. Yeah, so that's obscuring it, and we do that to ourselves, and it's because we give advantage to ourselves by obscuring that. We're not even open. When I say the world might, and I'm not going to say it's flat. Okay, I can't make that claim either, but I can give you evidence that it might not be as spherical as you perceive it to be. You got to be able to go outside the bounds of your understanding and take a curiosity of something. And when I challenge it, both of us need to be interested in finding out what the reality is, not, defending a position that we want to be true.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I mean, we've talked about this before where the idea of, well, the earth is not round. I'm like, okay, you're crazy. But then when you explain why you would say that, I'm like, oh, well, I totally get why you would say that. Yeah, but
what did it take? It took one level of thinking higher than the standard.
Well,
right?
it took the ability to have an open mind and go from you're crazy and I'm shutting down now to, all right, let me hear you out and really, really want to know why you think that way.
Yes.
And then once you presented why you think that way, I went, oh, that makes sense. I could see. I don't have to buy into it. I don't have to believe it, but I could be like, oh, I totally get why you would think that.
It turns you, right? It turns you and say, oh, because I never thought about it that way. And because I'm not making a claim that, I don't know to be true either. It's just a reasonable perspective that makes you think differently about things. So if you can do that about the shape of the earth, you can do that about the shaping of politics, the shaping of, principle and ethics and more.
I mean, don't they do this in court cases?
For sure.
If your attorney can shape something a certain way and create enough doubt, you can affect a jury in the outcome of a court case. Same thing in every day and everything that we deal with.
Yeah. And so the objective truth is that either all of us have an instinct and a curiosity to get to the best known truth at the time. When they were doing bloodletting, right? That was a truth that a bunch of smart people had a theory and they didn't have a counter argument against it. And so it evolved into something that it was really good science at the time. And it became better science when we were adopting of new information.
Yeah.
And that's like what Stephanie said is having the critical thinking skills. And I don't think I think people have the critical thinking skills. I think we're just obtuse and we're stubborn about giving into someone else's idea and giving them any credit that they may or may not be right. And I every day I am outed for being a little bit wrong on things. Okay. And that doesn't make me self-conscious or have insecurities about whether or not I still want to pursue truth. It means that in the pursuit of truth, you're going to get a lot of shit wrong. And especially when there's so many people that want you to believe wrong stuff.
Yeah. And what's such an enormous shame in our culture is that you will be thrown like shade and hate and called stupid for simply interacting about a subject. And maybe you're wrong, but you're like, I never said I was right or wrong. I said, here's how I'm
Here's my
seeing
pursuit.
things. Yeah. Here's what I'm interested in. Here's how it looks to me.
Yep.
And instead of someone being like, oh, interesting point, let me tell you where I think
And
you're
if you use that language, we'd never argue about it because you didn't frame it as an absolute. You framed it as something you're still toying with, right?
Yeah.
So the minute that you try to be an authority figure and then teach someone about something you know that they don't, that's when the defense is shut down and you're not being, you're not being motivating anymore.
Yeah. I mean, and if I'm listening to two people have a debate, let's say it was the flat earth thing, and you're like, well, I have this theory. I wonder if maybe the earth isn't round. I think that maybe because of the way light hits, blah, 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 could it be possible that we're seeing it differently? And someone comes along and says, you're so stupid.
Exactly.
To me, you look smart and they look stupid. Like that's all you have. You can't say, oh, Joe, I see where you're going with this. Let me tell you why I think that doesn't work.
Here's what you're missing. And then it's an exchange.
An intelligent exchange of information, not someone who's interested and knowledgeable and curious versus someone who's just being an asshole.
Right. Jen says, but aren't some rights considered inalienable while other people can be objectionable, whether people can be objectionable or not? Share a little bit deeper. I'm interested in that comment. I want to make sure I understand it correctly. So if you can rephrase it and add some more details, or call 330-595-1600. Denise says he sits enthroned above the circles of the earth and its people are like grasshoppers.
So she could say, I believe the earth is round because here's a biblical or something from scripture that causes me to believe that. And I would say, okay, I see your point there.
Do you want to bring it? Do you want to bring the theory of why the world might not be a sphere?
Do you guys want to hear this?
Yeah,
it's fascinating.
I think you do. And there is no punchline on this. This is literally just I never thought about it that way. Okay.
Yeah, because I've told people, I said, Joe has a great theory on flat earth. And first thing is, oh my God. And I went, no, hear him out.
Okay. So this is sort of like jumps of logic. And then you get to a jump and you can't go any further. So here's the jump in logic.
Okay.
We observe everything we know. Close your eyes, be blind, and there are less information around you. So we gather almost all of our information that we know and feel and orient us around visible information, right?
Mm-hmm.
What is required for visible information is light and matter. Matter reflects light, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Gravity, and when you start going in the expanses of space, gravity is a big influence on light. Okay? So there was an experiment done to see if light always traveled in a straight path or light had the ability to be curved or bent under gravity or around gravity.
Mm-hmm.
And so they did an experiment where they watched light move around the gravity of the moon, I believe it was. And they did, if it was going in a straight line, they watched it bend around a high gravitational pull. And so the first logic is we need light. And the second jump is light is malleable on gravity, right? So it is being distorted. So the things we see have a potential and a possibility to be distorted and curve around things. So the reality is light is going straight, but our observation is that light is being bent around something. So if you think the curvature of the earth is what it is, right, then you would have to then say that the light you're seeing is not the curved version, but is the straight path version. So if you made it go straight and took gravity out of the equation, what would the planet look like is now the big question mark, right? So if you unwrapped the curvature and made everything flat, right, then space is we see in 3 dimensions. So it would be hard to visualize what a 2-dimensional flat version of this existence would be. So, we're not meant to, our brains can't calculate that. So that is, I'm not saying that it is flat, but I'm also saying it's probably not round if what we're seeing has been manipulated by gravity.
Yeah. And I mean, just a far more juvenile explanation too could be, how many times have we seen optical illusions? You can go on YouTube, search up optical illusions and watch multiple videos about something your brain is telling you you are seeing that you are actually not seeing. Magic eye posters. You're seeing something in a totally different form than it actually is.
And
so why could that not be the case?
And that's the thing. Like if you really look at how the mind operates, like in our vision, in this whole room, right? My vision is like a little box around you. Everything in your peripheral and everything outside that box, your mind is painting a clear picture that it doesn't even see, but it knows what's supposed to be there, and it's filling in the lack of information details, right?
Yeah.
If your brain can concoct something that is not happening, either happening in the past because our neurons are firing milliseconds behind where our brain is processing them and it's assembling all of this data, it has the ability to concoct realities. And if it, again, that logical jump, if our brain can manipulate, light can be manipulated, then what we're seeing is just this illusion that's being constructed by this massive computer that's sitting on our shoulder.
Yeah. How many times have you heard about things like phantom pain, or someone loses a limb and they say, it feels like it's still there? We know it's not there.
Your brain is doing
You
that.
are perceiving it to be there. I've always heard we all can see our nose, but how many people on a regular basis realize they're looking at their nose? Your brain chooses to ignore it and look at other things.
Yep. All right, let's see. I just watched Horton Hears a Who. It was interesting how the kangaroo motivated the crowd to turn against Horton for the children. And Animal Farm's another one that I cite all the time because, like I said, we're participating in an illusion. A lot of people take the illusion very seriously and they get mad about what the illusion is there. And then everybody else is like, hey, we're kind of in control of this illusion. If we behave a certain way, then we make the illusion worse, right? And we construct exactly what we're fearful of and what we don't like and whatever. The premise of this is, we went on the pursuit a couple of weeks ago when we're putting this channel together, that we want to have varying opinions. We want to have people who can defend it. It's interesting to listen to. And I had no idea how hard it was to take people from the side that's on the minority side now, give it a platform to be able to say their things.
Yeah.
It's almost like they're in the, I want to hear things from other people and just be critical in small doses of them rather than having a position that has, some factors to it. You know what I mean?
And I remember I was pretty nervous to even do any of this for a while because it can be so scary to even open up about anything. Whether you're giving your opinion, whether you're asking a question about something, whether you're just sort of spitballing and discussing an idea, you can get so much hate from people for simply saying something that is not what they want you to say or what they want to hear. And what I love in this space that we have here is you can bring up anything. You can discuss anything. You can question anything. And we want grown-ups to learn how to be grown-ups. Here's something you don't like. Chill out and let's talk about it rather than, but it's stupid, I'm out of here.
But it's easy to say that. But like I said, from the perspective of when something is like when the barrels of that gun are pointed at you, it's really hard to say, I'm going to be objective about this, right? And so when it's emotional, let's use an example. So they're talking about the Derek Chauvin possibility of a pardon. Okay. And so that's a charged thing. There's some people that feel like justice was done. And there's other people who think that justice was not done, right? And so when you talk about the linear and logical, so do you think Derek Chauvin should be in prison right now?
Is this the police officer with George Floyd?
Yeah.
Okay. Do I think he should be in prison right now?
Yeah.
Oh my God. I have to go back and look into this. Was a while ago. He's the one who stood on his neck, so to speak. And I would have to look into it. I would have to get some more information, but possibly.
All right. I'll tell you what I know about it. And so taking a step back from Derek Chauvin, do you think that innocent people are in prison right now?
Probably.
Okay. So we have a system that makes some mistakes and robs people of their liberty. And if you were sitting in a prison cell right now, having been convicted of something that you should not be there, and you're sitting there and you're like, man, this is awful. I can't, everybody's outside and I'm not. How would you expect the rest of the world to treat you? Would you want them to be like, we want people who are guilty to be in prison, but man, Kellen's sitting in prison, robbed of her liberty right now. How would you want the public to feel about you being imprisoned?
If I was in there because I was wronged and I shouldn't be there, I'd be like, hey, listen to me. I'm innocent. Don't hate me. Let me give you my side of the story.
You would want everybody to be at least a little bit interested that if you said, I know everybody says I'm innocent that's in prison, 100% of them do. But if you really were and you were not supposed to be there, you would expect some shining white knight, right? To get curious enough to try to spring you and right the injustice of you being there. Now, what if the people, you went to prison for one thing, right, that you didn't do, but there are some people out there that said Kelin was really bad person, and even though she didn't get caught for that, I don't like her a lot, and I think she should be there because now I feel like that's been righted. I was gunning for her in the first place, so I'm going to fight that.
Like, she didn't do this, but I don't like that she did do this, so put her in for that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So they're not going to be interested in saying that justice was.
Sorry, I just saw
go ahead.
MLO Bros. Kelin, embrace the hate, embrace the troll.
She can't ever. She's not a troll lover at all.
I'm always like, you're so don't say that.
Right. So anyway, back to Chauvin. Mm-hmm. So I believe in this case that he was sacrificed for an overall movement. He represented that he went to prison on behalf of an emotional outburst from an entire group of people. So if he's in a position right now that he needs to be in prison only because if they were to spring him, you would have mass uprising and an upheaval of all society. And he's in prison saying, well, I'm in prison for something that I didn't do, and I should absolutely be on the outside. So the people who could rescue won't because of the implications and the devastation that would happen if they would spring you. And so you're just a sacrificial lamb at this point. Nobody's coming to rescue you unless that there is, we can get enough people to look through the details and say, be more in love with the justice side of things and be willing to suffer the consequences of righting some kind of injustice, which I don't believe will happen. And I can't trust a country or a government or law enforcement that will sacrifice me because it will get really rough for other people. If I'm willing to, that's one thing. If we went to Derek and said, hey, you know what, you got to stay in here because a lot of people are going to be mad and it's going to be, really bad on the outside. Are you willing to stay in here to just do that? Now,
that's a good point. That's a good point. I mean, look at Casey Anthony. She is now out. She's back on social media and instantly receiving so much hate. If I were Casey Anthony, I would be like, ooh, I am just going to go and live in a bubble. Anybody that is high profile like that. I mean, OJ Simpson's not around anymore, but can you imagine like OJ Simpson just going back to his normal life and anybody of that? That would be an interesting point, whether they're guilty or not. Or let's say hypothetically they did something or they were accused of doing something that they did not do, but they have been painted in this light now that can they ever go back to society?
Yeah, and I blame all of the legislatures that made it possible. Like when I talked to an attorney in my 20s, they wanted me to believe, like I got screwed on a court case. And I was like, I went to this attorney. I was like, how could this even happen? Like I expect when courts go through things, they're looking for truth. The prosecutor should come across some evidence, find out the person's not guilty, throw up their hands and say, there's no way I'm pursuing this case. But they pursue the game to the end result, and they will get the conviction in spite of coming across truths that don't. It's their job. Their job is to prosecute. And, and same thing on defenders. When they come across things and say their shit is guilty, right? I don't believe that they should still try to get somebody to circumvent the repercussions for that. there should be black and white in this deal. But I think, the legislatures have all conditioned courts to go after the kill, right, and get their convictions. We created an entire industry of warehousing people and creating criminals and putting them in prisons. And we created so many laws that if they come after you, they're going to get something on you, because there's not anybody that understands the laws that they should or should not be breaking.
Mhm.
So they created this sort of leverage mechanism that they can, again, that industry that gets fed and makes a ton of money on, going after citizens. It's not used as a way to rehab people or to make sure everybody behaves and whatever. It's just a money-making grift like anything else that comes out of government.
Yeah.
So, if you're in prison right now for selling or using marijuana when it was illegal, and now you have a dude on the street, you're watching him out your prison cell window doing the thing that you were there for, you're going to feel a way about that, right?
Speaking of that, quick sidebar.
Yeah.
Anybody that served or was serving jail time for marijuana when it became legal, were they released?
I don't think so. I don't think
I
so.
wonder how that works. Like if you were serving time for something that at the time was illegal and then it becomes legal, what happens to you? I wonder. That would be interesting.
I mean,
to look into.
It would assume that you broke the law at the time. And so from a, sort of like a rule standpoint, it was illegal, and you're not there because of the marijuana. You were there because you broke a rule.
Yeah.
Right.
This was your consequence.
Regardless
at the
if
time.
it's approved now, marijuana was just the noun. The verb was breaking the law.
Yeah.
And that's how, this kind of like, you can kind of find a lot of those contradictions even with like the immigration debate as well. People who you want to feel bad for them because they were trying to evade some terrible country or some oppressive government or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And if you oppose that, it's because the breaking the rule part, not that you were trying to, come from another place. Just over, I think it was last weekend in Junction, where they were flying those Venezuelan prisoners back to wherever they were being stowed away. A judge wanted to stop that right now, right? And use the judicial system to try to put a stop to that. But then there were planes that were coming in the other direction, and there were no judges that were doing injunctions to get the people coming here at all. So that whole, if they were following the rule of the law, they would have said, oh, you have illegal here, and then, gray area challenging a rule over here. But that one was, I can see if that dude had 200 cases of trying to stop planes from coming here. Yeah. And then this is just another one, because that was his gig. He was stopping the transfers that were suspect. But this one and not that one, I'm a little suspicious of that.
Red flag.
Yeah,
red flag. And again, be suspicious about something, point it out, have a discussion, not, oh my God, you're just because you're a Trumper and you hate America and you blah, blah, blah. It's like, my God, all I did is call out an inconsistency.
If you have communities that are suspicious that they're being targeted by law enforcement, and then you look up at the highest levels of government and see that we're being targeted by law enforcement, you almost have to agree that there's more probability that certain people were targeted, and say, yeah, I mean, the overall problem isn't the group, it is the function and how it enables people to do that. Going back to a previous story, that attorney that was trying to like call me down after I was wronged by my legal case said, our system is flawed. It's not 100%, but all of us, right? We fix our mistakes if there are any that are made, and it is the best system that you can have under these circumstances. So you look at it and say, okay, well, the alternative is you have anarchy where there's nobody enforcing rules and laws and putting nobody in prison. Nobody wants that. Yeah. And then we have an over oppressive, law enforcement that puts people just willy-nilly and, doesn't care about their liberties and isn't careful about it and doesn't do due diligence. And it's just a game to them. Mm-hmm. And if somewhere right in the middle, that it would make all of us feel a little bit better if we knew that we weren't just part of this game where we're a dollar figure if they can find a way to incarcerate us. And if they have a group of people like, that they can en masse put in prison, nobody's going to feel sorry for them. They don't really have a voice. There's nobody going to defend them, right? We can do it, and the overall principles are those people are the evil ones, the people that want to go after billionaires and take their money, right? If you can get enough people to support it and not feel guilty for whoever is victimized by it, then somehow we give it a free pass. So I feel the same way about targeting a group because they don't have enough say and targeting a group because they don't have enough say, and they're equal to me. You can blind me from what even we're talking about, and I can tell you the principle is you don't target people because you can get away with it. You follow an effing principle.
Yeah. I feel like there was a bunch of comments. Ghost hunting. Oh, that was the one.
Well, yeah.
That was going back on your flat earth thing and what your brain sees. Did you see the ghost hunting comment?
Go ahead, read it.
Ghost hunting, Joe. Your brain hears and sees things because it's in a certain train of thought, or you take pictures and you think you see a face in it. Oh my gosh, it's a ghost. Because you're wanting to see it. You're
looking for it. Your brain is cultivated. I literally tell all of you, do the blue car experiment this weekend. Just cultivate that or pick a color that you don't typically see. And then you will be like, oh my goodness, there's a lot of blue cars out there because you've told your brain to be on the lookout for something. Your subconscious concocts that and you will see it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you want to see racism, if you make a lot of money with racism, you will see racism everywhere.
Oh, I would love, we should do like this political experiment. Anybody that thinks, let's do the whole Elon is a Nazi. That's a pretty hot topic.
Right.
If you believe Elon Musk is a Nazi, he's evil, he's doing bad things, I want you to take 1 week and find every bit of information you can to the contrary. I want you to think that you are defending Elon Musk, that he's not a Nazi, and you've got to defend that to someone who believes it and show me everything you can find. Same thing. If you're like, he's not a Nazi, he's a genius, he's a guy who cares about his country, he's trying to help out, I want you to swap that. And by the end of the week, show me why you could see he's a Nazi.
Do you think I can go the whole weekend and battle with people on social media trying to take the contrarian view on what they're saying? Like I would have to suspend a lot of what I know, like almost like hit the little race button. Everything I know, come into it like a guy that just arrived on this planet, hear out somebody and someone say, Trump is going to take somebody's social security and say, oh, that sounds like a really bad thing. Let's be certain that that's not happening because nobody really wants that, right?
Yeah.
And then dig into it with blind eyes. Don't bring anything from your history or what you thought you knew, and see if you come to an objective conclusion that that's really happening, and if you're bought in. That would be a really interesting experiment.
Yeah, and talk to real life people in the industry. Social security offices. If you have issues with the Department of Education, talk to actual educators or board of educations and things of that nature. Look at articles from multiple sources. Make yourself see what they are seeing. And if you're still like, I still don't see it. That's kind of what I tried to do is I would see something. Somebody would be all up in arms. Oh my God, this is horrific. I'd be like, that is horrific. Why would we do that? I better look into this. And I will ask that person, send me your sources. What are your sources of information? Let me see what you're seeing. And I'll read it and be like, do you want me to tell you that's not what this actually says?
Like, I was actually corrected yesterday. And I want to take you through this so that people listening on the other side can go through the same mechanism. What Luke said earlier in the show about that objective truth and my counter that things have been really obfuscated. It's hard to really know what the truth is, but this happened. I want you to see why I was able to like write it a little bit. So the Doge clock, right? Mm-hmm. The Doge clock basically says this is how much money, $220 billion was saved by Doge. And then, so the counterpoint was, that's not really what was saved, right? Mm-hmm. And they wrote an article. Someone posted an article, and I read why that's a lie. And that was this is a lie. That's not really what's being saved. So I read the article, and the article said this, that Doge is canceling full matured contracts. Okay. So if I gave $20 billion to a company, right? It was $20 billion. and maybe they're a year in on it, and we have only funded 2 billion out of the 20 billion. There was only 2 billion that was spent. There was 20 billion that could have been spent. So there was 18 billion of it that couldn't be a savings. Okay. So the language I had to change is that the Doge cuts were not actual spending that was cut, but it was liability spending. So if I gave you $100 to go out to eat and you only ended up spending 50, my total liability would have been that $100, because you very well could have gone to the restaurant and spend the full 100. And I already was willing to take 100 off of my checkbook register that you had spent it. But if you didn't spend it on, gave some back, right? Then my fully realized savings would have been the $50. But my total liability spending would have been the full $100. So the language that I would say is the Doge clock counts full liability savings, not dollar for dollar savings.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So could it be, and again, disclaimer, I am thinking out loud.
Yes.
I'm letting my brain speak before I actually think about this, but it's our show. We do whatever we want.
That's right.
So then in the case of when you hear things like, oh my God, they're cutting things in the Department of Education and benefits kids' needs, or they're cutting things, military needs, or anything. Not necessarily then are they taking away what you had. They could just be saying, never mind, we're not going to give as much as we said we would.
Whatever has been spent at this point are going to be fulfilled, right?
Yeah.
So if you have a program that has funding, as long as that funding has already been done, we're just cutting money
you've not yet seen.
So if you had a Netflix subscription and I said, I don't want to pay that next month, and I canceled Netflix, you're still watching Netflix until it comes time to renew that thing. And if you want Netflix after, you're going to have to resubscribe to it, represent it, refund it, or else it just is going to stop working once that term expires.
So we are sort of stopping what they're getting, not immediately.
Right.
It's like carry out
but
what you have.
in the stuff that they're cutting isn't legitimate services, though. So they're not taking a program that is going to exist after that. They're taking ones that shouldn't have been there and are just waste. And like if I go into your Netflix, see that you haven't used it in 9 months, and I cut the subscription, well, I cut it and it wasn't being utilized anyway. That's the stuff that they're cutting off of the top. The politicians are just so they just lie so much, and they're so
they spin
manipulative.
Things. They spin it a certain way.
The strategy is they wrap, just like we talk about all the time, they wrap a good thing in with a bad. And so when you start unwinding the bad thing, because it's touching and it's intertwined with the good thing, number one, you risk disturbing the good thing because you wrapped it with the bad thing. They knew that it's harder to get rid of it if you're like the puppy dog thing and whatever. It's harder to get rid of it. Nobody will touch it because they're not going to take the political flack from disturbing the good thing to get to the bad. They do that on purpose. They are the evil ones. It's not the people who want to unwrap it. It's the people who wrapped it in there to begin with, wanted this to happen. So.
Yeah, but you're getting mad at the one that's stopping the good part in order to stop the bad part, instead of being mad at the person who put the bad part in there.
Yeah, and I will say I have not seen any fallout for the good things that have gone away. There's a threat of it because I know that there are going to be some good things that get disturbed on it. So it hasn't happened. So you can't be, Granny is still getting her Social Security check. It's not like there's a line of people who no longer can get it. So you're pointing to the probabilities that I would see. Right. Mm-hmm. And if I see the probabilities, the people that are engineering can say, yeah, I don't want that to happen too. And I'm going to backfill that so that part doesn't happen. But there will be fallout. And I know those people are going to capitalize the moment that something like that bad happens and say, see, I told you so. That's the whole setup in the craziness of this is, it's just eventually going to happen.
Yeah. Denise says, if Trump and Elon would not have taken this on, all the money would have been spent. They are saving that higher amount from being spent. It was earmarked to be spent.
Yeah, 100%. I don't know of a government agency that sees a budget and doesn't spend all the way up to $0.
In a lot of organizations, you have to spend everything you get, or else it all goes away.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or it's illegal not to spend everything. That's why all of those terrible, golden toilet seat examples of absurdities, that's a government agency doing what it's legal or legally bound to do, is spend the budget that the Congress gave it. They don't give an exception. They're like, sort of spend it, right?
Yeah.
Their job is to spend it all. And if their administrators can't find something to spend it on, they will waste it by design. There's no incentive not to.
I have a friend that works in food service in a school and said that they are required to tell all the children, every kid that comes through the school lunch line, you have to take this cup of fruit and put it on your tray. You have to. And if kids like, I don't want that. I don't want to eat that. I don't care. I don't care if you go through this line and you throw it away. You are required to take it and put it on your tray and walk away, or else we lose all this funding. And I'm like, what? So they're like, all right, thanks for all the fruit you bought. Bloop, right into the garbage can.
Yes, that is government in a nutshell right now. So I'm willing to, sort of agree that there might be some agencies that don't blow through that budget and they just spend it and they do it methodically and they get the contracts canceled. And they're like, I was being, I was a great steward of this money and mine got canceled, but the people who are blowing through the budget, they still got theirs. And I can see where that could be pitted against one another.
Yeah, because I could see in that same example, it's like, why would we spend money that is literally getting thrown away? At the same time, if you do anything about it, then it's, oh my God, you just cut healthy food options for a kid.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And if anyone else has any other input on this, feel free to call in or write in. Tell us where you think we're stupid.
This is a good little philosophical thing, and it was just a rant because that's what Fridays are for.
Tie into musical conspiracy theories.
Well, pattern recognition.
The way you see things.
Yeah, connecting overlaps. Like we notice when you go outside and look at a cloud and you see a picture because your brain tries to categorize and put it in those compartments of recognition. It's just a complete coincidence.
Well, Denise, in the beginning of the show mentioned the 27 Club, which at the time I was like, what is that? Now I remember 27 Club is a group of artists, music artists that all died at the age of 27. And so then if you start pointing them out, it's like, oh my God, what's happening to people at 27? Only because there's this handful like Janis Joplin and all these other people that are like, they're all dying at 27. Kind of like 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon. If you look into it, you will find yourself as 6 degrees to Kevin Bacon. If you look at it.
I am not as impressed with those mathematical, coincidences because we have a sample size of people that are in the millions, if not billions. For you to get repeating patterns, it would have to be equally as impressed with, I look through the census and there are like 1 million people named Jen, right? and I'd be like, yeah, there's 1 billion people and we pick names out of a hat and that was a popular name at the time.
They die in threes. You hear 2 celebrity deaths in a week and you're like, oh God, another one's coming.
Third.
Another one's coming. And
then
like a 98-year-old dies and you're like,
we're scouring for deaths. And if you didn't come to that realization, you wouldn't have been scouring. The information they would have died and nobody would have noticed. And you'd be like, you wouldn't have paid attention to it. I'm saying that's what our brain does is when it starts observing and collecting more data in a certain segment, it will find that data because there is so much information, you will find it. If I'm like, I got to go downtown and find a penny on the ground, right? And then you walk around and you're like, oh, freaking penny?
Find a penny.
There's a mathematical certainty that there's square mileage of a downtown that somebody walking around dropped a penny is a high probability. You wouldn't have seen it had I not told you to go try to find a penny, and therefore it wouldn't have been a thing, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Go to Crazy Town.
Yeah, let's go.
So I think I've told you about this before, but we'll talk about the idea of you're seeing something because you want to see it.
Yes.
Like, let me try to find blue cars and then you will find blue cars. Versus the idea of you made something happen in a more way.
Mm-hmm.
And that whole idea. One time I did a little experiment with myself. One morning I was like, all right, I'm going to put something out into the universe. I'm going to see if I can make it happen. Today, I want to see a pink heart. A pink heart. Not a red heart. That's too easy. Not a white heart. A pink heart today somewhere. If that happens, that's going to be really interesting. And I went all day and I waited and I'm driving home from work. And coincidentally, I go a different way than I normally do for no reason. I could have gone home this street or I could have gone home on this street. And I usually do this. And that day I said, I'm doing this. And I turned and I'm going around this little neighborhood and I see a little girl walking outside with a pink shirt on with a heart on it. And I went, now, wasn't a pink heart. I think it was white. But it was a heart on a pink shirt. And I went close enough on the drive I would not have normally taken. I went that way. That girl could have been there at any time on any day, but she was there at that moment on that day that I decided to look. She could have worn any shirt that day. She wore that shirt that day. And I saw it on the day I decided to look for a pink heart. What say you?
Do you have a theory?
Well, I have the universe made that happen theory that I put it out there and it mystically occurred. And maybe we aren't the only ones and we're living on some plane that I made something else happen. Or mathematically, there was a chance that could have happened.
I'm going with the mathematically part.
Okay.
Because single dimensional thinkers will really put it in the mysticism side of things, just like the crystals and the cloud categorization and the coincidences and believing in these things, that it's got to be a fiction above our understanding. It's got to exist in the vapor above us. Right. And it exists there because we're not geared to handle that kind of information. Right. But from a mathematical statistical standpoint, you're playing the averages. There was let's just say you had a heads up display and you could mathematically see possibilities. Like you looked at something and you had a list on the side of things that potentially you had car accident, and you had have a good day, and you had I'm going to have lunch at Chipotle, and just go down the list of probabilities. And as you make decisions through the day, those probabilities increase or decrease depending on what it is that you do. Now you have a conscious mind that we put a lot of effort into. It's our thoughts, our reason, our logic. We're coming to conclusions. We're thinking about things. And you have a subconscious mind that really we don't have a good handle on. But it makes a lot of our decisions through instinct and intuition. It pushes things up into our conscious brain and tells us to do certain things. So where you say you don't know why you turned a different way, you were following an instinct that was generated down deep below in the subconscious, that was pushed up in there. And all it was doing was saying, she said she wanted this thing. Right?
I better do something differently.
And I'm going to make decisions that increase the potential and possibility of the thing she wanted. And where it can't guarantee that thing happens, it might be a series of 100 different decisions that day that lead to a high probability of a thing you said that you wanted happening in the real world. You didn't manifest it. Your brain just brought you closer to a high possibility that that thing would happen. So the same thing happens when you're looking for racism, right? You're doing things that elevate the potential for you to see the thing that you want to see. Same thing with the ghost thing. I want to see a ghost. I'm put myself in an environment, put myself in a state of mind, eat a certain thing, drink a certain thing, breathe a certain way, blood pressure a certain way. All those things are controllable by the decisions you make. And your subconscious knows this and sets the conditions so that the thing you want to realize is a high possibility and potential.
So
there's the mathematical version.
Thinking about it is, had I gone the usual way home, I would not have gone through a neighborhood, therefore decreasing my chances of seeing anything, any people, any other houses, any yard decor, anything. But I went through a neighborhood where all those things are more prevalent, aka more likely to see something like a pink heart.
Yes.
This is going to be weird, and I swear to God, I'm not making this up.
Okay.
I swear to you. But one of the reasons I chuckled a little bit when I saw Emma Lowe's talking about ghost hunting is this morning while getting ready to come here, I start thinking, man, we haven't done ghost hunting in a while, and that would be so cool. And we should talk to them about ghost hunting. And MLO bros make a comment about
Yeah.
ghost hunting.
It is very sexy when it's in the mystic, and
It's
that's
like,
why
woo, it's exciting.
people are very attracted to something that's kind of, you know, the JFK stuff, Sasquatch, aliens, flat Earth, all this stuff exists in
musicians died but didn't
it
die.
does not have a solution. Like, it's not solvable, and so you can keep talking about it over wine around a campfire forever, and nobody's ever totally right and nobody is ever totally wrong, and that's what makes it fun. But if you take what the math that I just gave you, and you know, when you go throughout a day, all you're doing is assembling and making things more probable and less probable, and you can do this times 1,000. So let's just say you picked 1,000 things that you wanted to do, and you put your subconscious on you demand it, that it's on the task of revealing all of those things, and maybe you hit 90% of them. You made 900 things happen that day by just increasing their potential and probability up.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good day.
And then you throw in the factor that somebody could be making information to support something. You know, like when it comes to the conspiracy theories of the urban legends of artists and things like that. The Beatles were a big band that went through this whole Paul is dead thing. You know about that?
Yeah.
Like, I think the Beatles fed into that. I think,
Of course they did.
you know, the Abbey Road album cover.
Do you think there's any ghost hunters that are just commercialized people who know what people like to see in these things and deliver them exactly?
Yes.
Okay. So that fabrication is just playing that role and doing that thing. So if people are mediums or have a sense for it, I'm sure there's some people that get some information that you and I don't have, but most of them are probably like rehearsing what it is to say to be believable, at the same time giving you the red meat that you're asking for. Same thing with people who take you under hypnosis, same thing. All of them are under the same deal. If it's in the mystic side of things, you're going to have a good bit of them that are total fakers, right? Just like every other industry that there is. I'm sure there's a musician that's not really a great musician, and they get auto-tuned and edited a great deal that make them into something that they truly are not in every industry.
But could you also see, like, there's a bunch of people, like artists they think died but didn't die. You know, Avril Lavigne is one where years ago, Avril Lavigne stepped out of the spotlight. She was very sick with Lyme disease. Almost died, was real sick. She's now back. She's better. She's on tour. She's making music. A lot of people believe that Avril Lavigne actually died. And we got somebody that looks just like her, sounds just like her. They groomed her to be her and put her back out there. And all I can think is, was Avril Lavigne that big that somebody would go through all that? Like, Prince isn't really dead, or Michael Jackson isn't really dead, or Elvis isn't really dead. Okay, I could see somebody saying they just wanted to leave and live a normal life and be out of music, and they were too big for that to happen. Is Avril Lavigne too big for that to Why? Why would they use her? No offense to Avril Lavigne, but could you believe that anybody in that situation could fake their death and maybe did fake their death to get out of the spotlight?
Sure. It's probably a lot more innocuous than that. You know, there's probably a better explanation that you just don't know about, and that's what makes it exciting. She witnessed a murder and went into, witness protection program, and she had to go away, change her appearance. And when she reemerged, she didn't want to tell you that she was a informant to, police, and she just came back out, and your reason was much more spectacular than the one that she had. And she's just like, I'll let you go with it, because that lays down a bunch of cover fire and brings attention to me. That's equally as a viable explanation.
Or maybe a big name celebrity got involved in some sort of dirt, something went down, and they're like, this is going to be real bad for my image. I'm going to
or maybe there were two of her. Maybe they were born as twins, and one of them made the spotlight and the other one was the stand-in, and they kept that from the public.
That's a Demi Lovato conspiracy.
There you go.
That Demi Lovato has a twin sibling locked in a basement somewhere.
And I've seen enough movies that it's a total possibility. But like I said, it's meaningless on one side or the other. What if you find out? Who cares? What if you never find out? Who cares?
Michael Jackson was still alive. I bet a lot of people would care.
What would that do for you?
It would make everybody distrust everything, which is what you should be doing.
You should, that's the thing. You should already be doing that, because you are fed just an illusion. Your brain's doing it. The outside world's doing it. So if they're like, hey, Michael Jackson came out of retirement death and is going to be putting out a new album, I would say, don't care, right? Great spectacle. You guys had a lot of discipline to keep a guy dead a really long time that had the means to live a spectacular life. That's the only part that I'm impressed with, is that was a pretty good deal.
Yeah, I'd be like, wow, you really pulled that off. Imagine what you can do in the government to make people believe or feel a certain way about other people. But you're stupid if you question that.
Did your light bulb just go off in a lot of it? Yeah. But I love conspiracies are fun. If the only if on any conspiracy is if it changes your perspective and makes you look at something a little bit differently. The what ifs are you don't get to like say that you know something that you really don't know, because that's just annoying. You know, like, I know Elvis is not dead. Oh, really? Tell me about the word no and what makes you be absolutely sure. You've assembled some things that shed light that maybe other people don't have the truth, but you don't know either. So let's have fun and throw out non-absolutes and just have fun with the information.
Yeah. Or even if someone, like, if they take a political candidate or a political figure and they're like, this person is so terrible. I almost want to say, and this is an actual open question to anyone that wants to type in or call in, who is a good example? Who is a clean, shining star, upstanding person with integrity that you think should be running the country or in a political position? Who has a completely squeaky clean past that you think is smart enough, is knowledgeable enough, is good enough, has enough integrity, who should be in this place?
And I'm not going to answer it so that the rest of you can, but
you have an idea of someone?
Someone who is?
Yeah.
No, my response is that there isn't.
Right. That's my point. Is everyone's like, this person is so awful and they're going to do this and they're going to do that. And I'd be like, okay, well, we can argue all day whether or not we think that's true about this person. So why don't you tell me who's better? You know, in any position. I don't want him doing this. I don't want her doing that. All right. Who do you want to do it? Well, I don't know. Okay. So if everybody has a pass and everybody can be painted in a certain light, or maybe somebody's a good guy, but they don't have a lot of experience, or they have a lot of experience and can do a lot, but they did this when they were younger, then by all means, who fits your mold of who should be in all these positions? Because if it's impossible to find, then where do you start to make concessions?
So you and I are talking logically, right? So there is a whole segment of logically blind people. Okay. Now, do you inflict your principles where you think logic should be part of the decision-making process when those people do not participate? They don't have the insight. So what do you do with those people? Like, I don't expect people who are in that to be, I don't want them making decisions, because you need logically minded people to make decisions. So, you know what, you can have an endless cycle of these contradictions. So Elon is a Nazi, so I'm not buying his car. I'm going to go drive my Volkswagen. And then people like you and I laugh all to hell, right? Because you just threw out the biggest contradiction in the world. Or Henry Ford in the Ford. Do you think Henry Ford was a good dude?
I didn't know Henry Ford.
Okay. What you need to do is, and everybody listening, is pick your favorite person, someone who you think might be the closest to Lily White, and read an objective biography of what they really were, and see if on the conclusion of looking into their actual life that they were a great person and they were everything you thought them to be. The thing is that most of your people, you are hero worshiping. And so you don't want to know that Henry Ford was a racist, bigot, Nazi sympathizer, Jew hating person. But you'll get in your Ford and drive something with the actual namesake, right, of the guy who actually published anti-Semitic literature for a period of time, right?
Wow. I did not know that.
Okay. But when you dig, everybody has this story, just in a different department. Steve Jobs, right? I really love Steve Jobs. I thought he was a great innovator. Knew he was kind of a mercurial person.
Mm.
But when you look, he was not a good person at all. But yet I carry around the product of a non-good person. And will he be known as the flawed individual, or will he be remembered as the phone? So you get to decide whether or not you take the things they did in spite of being flawed and be renowned, or you can take something. And I think that of all of the innovators that I've studied, Elon, at least what we know about him, is the least flawed one of the people that I have studied. And yet they're setting cars on fire in his honor.
So interesting. You loved the cars when it was all about the environment. Now that the guy that you liked before is working for and supporting someone you don't like, now we're all going to burn the cars. And
what a good reaction.
Yeah. I like how, did you see Denise? Oh, Denise says they are Democrats. Okay. So do you have someone in mind that you could name, Denise, that we could maybe look into? And also, just out of curiosity, if they are Democrats, how do you feel about people like RFK Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard, and who were Democrats for a very long time, but now are working with Trump? Did they suddenly become bad? Were they good? You know, so Denise, feel free to comment on that.
And Jen says it is that keyword objective. Elon does not have the ability to be objective while still benefiting from the system financially. And we will see. We will see as he goes through. And that's the thing. Like, I'm willing to see whether or not you can look at the contract that benefits you the same way the contract that does not benefit you. Like, if you dug through it and he says, okay, well, the government truly overpaid for this contract that they did to SpaceX versus putting it through the exact same filter. Coming to the conclusion that he doesn't have the ability hasn't been proven out. So I'm willing to wait and see when they get to that department if he has equal criticism on his own contracts. And you know, human beings don't on the wholesale, right? When there's something in it for you, you're a little bit more permissing than it would be if you were on the other side of that. Mm-hmm. But we'll see. It remains to be seen.
Yeah.
Denise says, right, RFK Jr. left the party as it got so communist. And there's when I was a kid, there was always talk about how the Republicans became the Democrats and the Democrats became the Republicans, and this oscillation between the two, you know, principled side. And as a person that kind of just stands wherever I'm at, and I don't really pay attention to where I need to maneuver myself for any kind of expediency, I do watch these planes. Like, even someone who I thought, you know, like Tulsi Gabbard, like she was a Democrat, but she was, I knew she was super smart. She had great perspective on things, and she's a Democrat that I really liked to listen to and hear from. And I don't know if these people pivot and change their beliefs at a certain point and they seem like they're no longer a Democrat, but I can't articulate or point at something that I think that they've changed on. So I'm watching this fear move around me, and I'm kind of feel like I'm staying the same, but I don't know, maybe I'm moving to, I don't know. It's that, is the car moving next to you, or are you moving type of scenario?
Yeah, exactly. And it is so weird. You know, for me, I had this perspective for many years that liberal left Democrats were synonymous with the good, caring, wear your emotions on your sleeve, do the right thing and help people mindset. And the right Republicans were the rich, selfish jerks that are all about themselves. And like it or not, a lot of people don't want to hear this. When I watched over the last couple of years, I started to slowly see them start to slump a little bit. At the very least, you could say they were both being the same. Now, granted, there are extremists on both sides. So I am not saying all of them. I am not saying everyone. But when you watch people that are all for love and acceptance and treating people right, doing very mean and harsh things to people, how do you explain that? And how do you not let that skew your view? And then now...
So is it performative? Like, if you have Bernie Sanders, who said that we should take all the wealth from people, and he has multiple mansions, and he has the wealth that he is railing against. Now, if he would be trustworthy if he could have those things and he pushes it into the coffers because he believes in it so much. But I think it's more performative than when he says certain things, people pay attention to him. So he keeps saying the thing, and nobody on that side will point him and say, hey, you're a hypocrite of the things you say. You're going after this dude, but what about the guy on your side? So that's why I mean, I think it's more performative.
Yeah. And what's interesting, Denise, is because the media controls the perception. And absolutely, I think to a point they do. I don't trust the media. I think their bias is crap. And I think that they can absolutely and will try to affect the way you see things, and they will turn people's words around and skew things. But my view and my opinion started to be based not just on the media, but on the people I know on the left, that the moment I questioned anything, the mean, harsh pushback. I saw this funny meme online recently, and it was two groups of people, the right and the left, and they were arguing. And somebody stood in the middle and they said, but what about this? And they just said, but what about? And somebody from the left shoved them real hard into the crowd on the right. And they said, this is what happened in this election. And I'm like, I get that.
So because the media controls the perception, I'm going to disagree with that. Okay. And only because I think we're looking at it improperly, and it might be true, but do you believe that commercials control hunger? So you're watching the game.
I think they try to. Yeah. I think,
okay.
Yeah.
And does everybody not market and try to persuade for everything? Name something where marketing is not trying to control your thoughts, actions, desires. Does music, are they in control of emotion?
Yeah.
Because they elicit it and they whatever. So everything is marketing. Name something where marketing isn't a play. It's just a truth where you are free to choose A or B, and I just want to give you information. There's none.
Yeah.
In fact, when people behave that way, so if I were in a store and I was selling computers, right? And somebody walked up to me and said, I want to buy a computer. And then I say, well, the thing that you want, we don't sell here. So you should go over there. Like It's a Wonderful Life. Remember that? Go over to Gimbel's deal. You don't remember that?
I've never watched that movie all the way through.
Oh.
I know about the bell ringing. But...
So if I'm in there and I say, we don't really sell what you actually need. You need to go to another place. Go over there. Who would be mad at me in that deal? My employer? Would they be mad?
I would say maybe your company.
My company would. So do the companies then control what I recommend? So really the authority structure means that you are going to have a boss somewhere, right? If Bernie Sanders is your boss, then that authority figure is marketing things down to you. And if he's the only one doing it, everybody else is being truthful, and he's the only one marketing, then you can take aim at him and say, well, don't market to me, just give me truth. But if literally everything and everybody is just marketing principles, political views, where you're going to go out to dinner, what concert venues, if everybody's marketing, then everybody is guilty of the thing you're gunning on one person for.
That's why I always say these whole Senate confirmation hearings are such a joke. Really, what are we doing here? All it is the two sides giving their own opinions about something. They are on that side. They are loyal to that side. They have to vote a certain way, regardless of how they feel about the person in the hot seat. So come on. We all know you're going to vote this way. You're going to vote this way. No one's actually going to.
I feel like we're talking about wrestling. Okay. Everybody who watches wrestling know that it's just theater, right?
Yeah.
And then somebody will come in the room and say, hey, that's fake, don't you? Right. Thinking that they just bought this truth bombshell in and told you something that nobody who's watching realized, right?
This is.
And the reason people watch it is because that is what they want to watch, right? And so we want to think we're so sophisticated, but we are really not.
Yeah.
And Patricia says, I wonder if SpaceX and Elon would have had a parade in their honor for bringing the astronauts back if Doge didn't exist. I mean, it would have been headlines. It would have been celebrated.
Yeah.
It would have been given proper, if that's the thing, if we want to take people who do things like that and celebrate them, we would have. But we don't live in a world that celebrates, getting things done and being smart and being honest. We celebrate the theatrics.
Let's look at that. I wonder if they would have had a parade in honor for something they did. One person would be like, oh, they're so conceited and stuck up and narcissistic, they'll have a parade in their honor. Do we have parades and holidays and days in honor of historical figures that do things?
We have parades for basketball teams who win championships.
Yeah.
Less honorable, right?
Yeah.
Might have some achievements in it, but that is what we celebrate.
We have holidays where you get a day off because of something somebody did.
Mm-hmm.
So
but saving the lives of astronauts through technological marvels, not worth a parade or a celebration.
So again, it's like,
weird.
Well,
it's a weirdness.
Don't like this person, so we shouldn't celebrate this thing. I do like this person, so let's celebrate this thing. Who gets
maybe a bronze statue of Elon holding up a dragon capsule to commemorate.
As long as that's all the way up,
out to the side,
not all to the side.
Holding up a capsule. Oh, that'd be so funny to troll the shit out of people. Because it wouldn't take a lot. You own some property, you have a bronze statue built, and it would be a huge troll and spectacle.
It would. It would. Oh my gosh.
When people say that I'm an Elon fanboy, do you think that bothers me?
No. Does it?
It doesn't. No.
Because I know you like him.
Do you think it should?
Well, anybody who says you're an Elon fanboy is obviously trying to say that in a negative way.
Okay.
They don't think you should be. They're trying to take a dig at you.
Okay. I mean, I want to. Okay. So, fanboy to me is in spite of things that you will never condemn the person because you're a fan of them.
Doesn't matter what they do, I'm gonna like
you're
them
just a fan of them, and you're gonna say all the good things and never say any of the bad things, and you're gonna put them in a fandom light rather than a critical light. Yeah. And I went back through and think, okay, let's think of something critical of Elon, and maybe even couple that with something that I have said publicly about Elon. So think of the worst thing about Elon.
I don't know Elon that well. I don't know him that well. I'm trying to play devil's advocate.
I got one.
Okay.
I got one. He's fathered 15 children with lots of different women.
Okay.
Okay. That's a
good point. Yeah.
So
just to reproduce.
Yeah. And I'm a big supporter of the nuclear family and the sacredness of marriage. And that absolutely is contrary to my beliefs that somebody lives outside of something I don't necessarily think they should do, but I wouldn't do that. Okay.
Yeah.
So does that create a contradiction in my fandom that Elon is not living a virtuous life through marriage, that I'm not holding anybody accountable for that? Have I ever been critical of anybody's marriage around me? Not at all.
Yeah.
Because the opinion's not being asked and they're not going to listen to me anyway. And I just won't choose that for myself. So it doesn't really create a contradiction. Doesn't even create something worth pointing out. The dude feels so incredibly passionate about increasing the population. Mathematically, 15 kids is not going to put a dent in the real population problem.
Yeah.
And it's not inspiring other people to go have 15 kids as well. And I hope nobody goes out there and uses that template for increasing the population. And so I don't feel like I am overly critical about it, and I'm definitely not going to say that I support it.
Yeah, when I was trying to figure out who to vote for in this last election, anytime I would sort of give prompts to Trump or the Republicans over any sort of issue, I was met often with feedback of, I can't imagine you voting for anyone that speaks about women the way he did. And to that, I said, do I like that? No. Do I condone everything that comes out of his mouth? Absolutely not. But if I push back against every man I know that has ever said something about a woman, objectified a woman, did something inappropriate with a woman, said something a little unethical or uncomfortable to a woman, I would know no men. None.
Yep.
None. And this is what we were talking about earlier. What is your experience with someone? What is my experience with someone? If you've not ever had that experience and you think this is a bad guy for what he said, my experience tells me all men say that. So
you've just
I have
eliminated
to
everyone.
strike
And that's
that
what
off.
Julie said. Elon is meddling in things of vital importance to the American people, and it's not being transparent about it. So cool. This is just goes along with your
And
point.
thank you, Denise, for saying fair enough, because I think it's a very mature person that could say good point. But go on.
So if the principle is that you don't like people meddling important things, you better be consistent on it. And what if it was your guy meddling in things? What if they were fixing it's broken that we're not Marxist enough or socialist enough, and they start meddling in things like just en masse giving people money and en masse forgiving student loans? If they're meddling in important things and it's your guy, can you still say, yeah, you know what? They're not being transparent about what they're meddling. So if your takeaway is that we need to restrict the influence of meddling people in government, no matter which position they hold. Now I can respect that, and I can actually join you in that.
Yeah.
But if he's just a different meddler, then it's it's a little less believable.
And the idea of he's not being transparent about it. Am I just getting served really wrong information on a daily basis from the internet? Because I feel like we see a lot of transparency. We all know about a lot of examples of things they're looking at. There's a website with information on it. There are videos that politicians have put out on social media about it.
It's that term. When you're saying you're being transparent about it, that's an absolute. If you said we're being more transparent about it, it means that you're taking what used to be and having increased it. It is not fully transparent, just like if we looked at the JFK files, or we're going to look at the Epstein files, right?
Mhm.
Being transparent means that they put the documents in front of you, and it's all of the documents, and there's nothing missing. That would be transparent. If I redacted a bunch of things for whatever reasons, and I stowed a couple of those pages that I really didn't want you to see, that would be more transparent than not having them at all, but it would be fully transparent because still some information has not been presented to you.
Yeah, I mean, I saw somebody shared with me recently a video of Obama from years ago talking about exactly what's happening now. He says, listen, we need to do some audits. We are looking into spending. We really got to cut a lot of this waste. We want to make sure there's no corruption. It was everything about what we are looking at today. We never saw anything. Did we? We never saw any examples of where they were going to cut or where the waste was or the departments they were looking at. Now that we are, it's not enough, or it's not the right ones, or it's not the right person doing it. You know, it's like I see so many instances that what is happening now is not the craziest idea. We just are seeing it differently. And so then people forget, by the way, this is not the first time anything like this has happened.
Yeah. When we were talking about Trump and the things that he did and said about women, okay, we went through an era of the Me Too movement, and it was important, the Me Too movement, for, letting the public, orient itself around how we want, what our standards should be, how we should appreciate other people, be considerate of other people. And that was really good. Even the, the racial movements and the different ethnic groups. I think we go too far in a lot of ways, but I think even though we served the time and went the wrong way, we made things a little bit better. So do I think Trump, when he was in his entertainment days, was a terrible human being to people all over the place? Yes, just like every other person. And if you can give me the lily white person who is full of virtue and never behaved that way, if given the choice on both things, which one would I choose? I would choose the one that more aligned with my principles and values. But if you hand me garbage heaps in every direction, you can't, you can't be surprised when I choose somebody that I had disagreements with in one department and held my nose while I pulled that lever, if and if you're honest about it, you probably do and have done the same thing.
Oh yeah, I used to joke in a couple of elections that, when you go and you vote on election day and you get a little "I voted" sticker, I used to say, I really want to wear my sticker that says "I voted and I feel dirty." Like
That should be every time.
I felt really convicted, like there was no great choice here, but I have to look at other things. When someone's like, well, this person speaks like a jerk and they're not very classy. Okay, well, that's a good point. But if I have a military husband that's going to be sent overseas, who do I think is keeping him safe? Because that takes priority over what was said in a locker room. If someone's like, well, this person could put more money in your pocket as a working person. Okay. Is that held over? I don't know, something that they did to another group that they thought their rights were being taken away. Like, no, I don't want anyone's rights to be taken away. I also don't want my family to be affected in this way. Like, there's so many different things to look at on both sides that it's like the moment you even start to look at another viewpoint or start to feel like you're maybe more personally tied to a viewpoint, it's like, oh my God, how could you? Look what they did. And I was like, okay, then show me who doesn't. Show me who the good option is. Show me someone that has that perfect record. And by all means, I'll go that route. I got a lot of flack because I bought my Maha hat, my Kennedy 2024, and was a big supporter of RFK Jr. I still like RFK Jr. And everyone's like, oh, how'd that work out for you? Oh, the guy that cut off a whale's head? You think I give two shits about what he did with a dead animal when there's so much more on the line here? It's like everybody has their own priorities.
And they know. I can run a focus group right now. They would say, you as a voter, let's just say you're a conservative. You as a voter, what would be a deal breaker for you? And you would list the things that if that candidate was 1, 2, 3, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're a racist, you're a homophobe, you whatever. Like, I got my list, and these are the ones that will say, "Ooh, if I can frame the candidate as any one of those 4 things, I can erode the voter from saying, I'm out. I'm not even voting. That is the deal breaker for me." So now I can inauthentically try to push somebody into a group that will automatically, remove votes from that election. So would a politician feel a conscious, bubble up in their head if they swayed public opinion for Elon being a Nazi or Trump being a racist or any one of those things, if they knew that if they put them in that category, that you can rob them of votes? Now, when you're sitting at home saying, man, that was really unfair that we made somebody have 34 felonies for things that we concocted or made him into something that we truly know he's not really, but it's advantageous for us to put him in that box because we might win if we put him in that box. Mm-hmm. So that would, it would disqualify any politician who would make a move that would follow things that were untruthful for the expediency of what they charged at someone, because nobody would want that done to them. And if somebody today said, Joe, you're a racist, right? We would expect everybody to say, well, the charge doesn't mean anything. Let's see the evidence of that charge. And if you can own the judicial system and then charge me with racism, right? Mm-hmm. And then say, see, I charged it. I got a judge to say it. Then he's a racist. Then I can't even say anything. That is just my identity now. And you destroyed me because you took control of the narrative. And then you took control of a function of government. Now you get to win. And that ends up being your deal breaker. I don't get elected because I checked the first box off the list. Joe's a racist.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we've done that to the parties. To call somebody a liberal or a conservative, that carries something.
For sure.
To say you are right-wing, left-wing, Republican, Democrat, like, people will label you and put assumptions towards you based on however they feel a liberal or a conservative is.
Exactly. And it's effective.
And it could be nowhere near what you actually are.
All right. So let's see. Julie first says, check out reporting from David Fennerhold. You will see how he is trying to hide what he is doing. And Julie also says, do you think the sexual abuse accounts from 26 women and his association with Epstein and his court decisions of being an adjudicated rapist include his ex-wife says something about Trump? It becomes less believable because of the sheer number. Like, you got to say he's either the worst human being on the planet and everything you said was accurate, or you just levied everything you could think of at him, hoping something would stick. And as time goes on, felonies, the whole thing, it feels a lot like he's being gunned for, and things where he probably acted terribly over the course. You ever see what's that show on Apple TV? It's about the morning show.
I think it's called The Morning Show.
Is it called The Morning
Jennifer
Show?
Aniston?
Yeah.
Yeah, recently.
Right.
I've never watched it.
So
I've heard
Mitch
of it.
is one of the hosts there, and he gets he had sex with everyone in his office, and he gets pummeled, right?
Mhm.
And a couple of the victims of his sexual exploits, where he maintains that they were all what's that word?
Like willing participants.
Yeah, willing participants in it. And they all say that he used his authority in order to take advantage of people. All right. And so if at the time, like when this stuff was going down with the Me Too movement, there was a lot of people caught in that net of, accusations that were, yes, you were a philandering dirtbag who cheated on your wife and took advantage of your position, but it wasn't really at the he raped me thing.
Yeah.
Right. Especially since historically, this has probably happened since the beginning of time. And so I kind of put Trump in that category where, yes, he had access to beautiful women his entire career. So he probably took advantage of that a whole lot. And yes, he was a dirtbag for it. And I feel like there's a lot of other people that are in that same net as well. So like, to your point, if you disqualify everyone or those people, then you disqualify everyone. But a lot of that, I feel, are exaggerations and fabrications. There's probably a lot to the fact that he's a dirtbag. So if you just said he was a womanizing dirtbag, I'd probably agree with you, and there's enough evidence for that. Whether or not he's a rapist, I'm probably going too far, and it's probably counted in that. Sexual abuse, I mean, I got a different definition of sexual abuse than you're probably laying out. And if it's one of those things, that might be check him off the list there. But I don't necessarily think it got elevated to that point.
Yeah. And what gets me is, when she says, do you think the sexual abuse accounts from 26 women? How do we not know that those are all legit? How do we not know someone wasn't either paid to say something or it was misconstrued or whatever, anything? A game of politics, people can push things to look a certain way. But me just saying that, me even suggesting that out of 26, maybe not all of them were truthful, I'm the bad guy. I'm the bad guy for not even just blindly going along with what a dirtbag that brutally assaulted 26 women by simply saying, well, we've seen a lot of instances where a political candidate can be painted in a bad light to hurt his reputation. What if that's not true? What if that's not true? Is not me saying, nah, he's a good guy. Those women are just
what
dumb.
would it take? I mean, the way that I picture it, whenever you want to find truth, you put two people in a room, right? And they tell the accounts of their story. And then you have an arbiter who weighs down and see if there's enough evidence to, to say absolutely true, have evidence, pictures, texts, whatever. And they've done that with other celebrities, right? And that's what it would take in this case. And I'm just, like I said, I'm the only reason I'm not 100% convinced is that the sheer number of attempts to discredit, it makes it more likely to me that you're just trying to take somebody out. If you didn't do that and it was just the merits of something that he did and you didn't gang tackle him in every other department, then I would say there's more validity to it. But I'm just under convinced at this point.
Yeah. We'll address Julie in a sec. Jennifer says, I feel very uncomfortable with the then I would disqualify everyone motto. Why is that not okay? It's saying, well, everyone does it, so I might as well accept the boundary.
Now, only that it's exploited by once you know that it's a disqualifier, then you try to make things that aren't it into that disqualifier to take advantage of the disqualifier. So now you can't put it on the list and keep it on the list and make it a binary choice because so many people are trying to force that and use that against you. That it's those people that make it harder to have that binary choice.
Yeah.
And I am uncomfortable with it too. I wish it were binary. If somebody said somebody was a racist, we both have an understanding of what that means, and you didn't have some fringe cases that try to get stuck in there that now I got to say you're a racist, but are you really? I don't want to be having to make that question. I want the terms to mean something, and when you use it, you only use it sparingly and when you have absolute certainty behind it.
Yeah. Somebody says, funny how he gets accused of rape so recent, only when he becomes president, who cannot be controlled by globalists who want to destroy this nation. And Julie says, this isn't your neighbor at your basic dirtbag. This is the president of the United States, which exactly. Do I want a president that presents himself well and has a squeaky clean past and is somebody you can really take pride in? Absolutely. But this isn't my neighbor. It's the president of the United States. Who holds more weight and who would most likely be gunned for? Who is going to be like, oh, we have an agenda here. We got to dig up some dirt. We got to make some dirt if it doesn't exist. And I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but obviously the higher position, the more dirt someone's going to try to put on your name. Clinton wasn't a dirt bag? Question mark.
I'm not going to pummel Clinton either, because I think they are all dirtbags, and you have some that are really good at concealing it and some that are really bad at concealing it. And they're both the same, whether or not you present it. So do I want an Obama? Whereas I've always been impressed with the presentation in a theater that Obama was able to put on. It felt good listening to him speak.
Yeah, I liked him.
You bought into the things that he was saying. Do I think Obama was a dirtbag? Absolutely. He was just better at being at the theater part and buying you in. He was a better marketer, right? But this is my favorite thing about AI in the future, right? It is going to take that out of the equation, and you are going to be judged by the metrics of truth, right? It can't be, it can be biased. So for instance, let's just say that we wrote the definition and we all agreed what racism was. It's when you use race to either or you make a judgment based on race. It's all it is. So AI is like, okay, I know what race is. It's when I make judgment of a race. What happens when AI then picks somebody who you don't feel is a racist, but the evidence and the truth of what they do qualifies them for being a racist? Now, is it a scramble then to change the definition to make sure that it excludes your people out of the equation? And if you build that bias, so let's just say Reverend Jackson, we put the AI out there and AI says, we put in, give me the top 50 racists that there are. And Jackson's on the list. And then the engineers are like, oh, that's not supposed to be. Jackson can't be on the who's a racist list. Let's alter this. So we change the definition so that he drops off of the list. Now you've skewed and biased what AI could dig out. And that's what we have on the marketing side. We can market against somebody just as easy as we can market for them. So what our perceptions is based on who got marketed against more and who was able to conceal the information from the AI. And so that we just don't know that they're a dirtbag.
Yeah. Yeah. Would you put your life and your children's lives on the line for your country? Trump does it every day. According to Denise.
I would love to say that if shit went down, we had an invasion by somebody, and I'm like, what am I going to do? Am I going to leave my family and go stand up for everything this country is? Right? That I would have a moment where I would first ask, what is my country? Right? My country is more about my neighborhood than it is about my government. So would I put on the government's wardrobe and defend them? No, because they do not have my back. They are the enemy of me as far as I'm concerned. Now, would I stay and protect the people who love the neighborhood as much as I do and will protect the neighborhood? I'm more likely to stay in my own colony, right, and defend what I believe the people in my neighborhood believe in than those douchebags who would throw me under the bus in 2 seconds. So I probably wouldn't put on the national patch, but I would definitely put on the local patch. That's just the way that, and I want to one day be a patriot, to know that my government has my back as much as I do. So I will serve them because I almost owe them, right? That deal. But that is a weird quandary that they took a patriot like me that watched those old movies, the Patriot and all those people that fought in the revolution. how willing they were to die for a belief system higher than they are. My government just doesn't represent that same belief system. And that's why they don't have me. I want to say they do, but I'd be lying if I said they have me true and true.
Yeah. And you really got to sort of, if you're in my view, if you're going to join the military, you really got to have a certain perspective. And like you said, you're doing it for your people, your country, your community, whatever, because you're going to face backlash. You know, my husband has been in situations where was spit on. People were spitting on them because they were soldiers. And it's like, everyone's like, oh, well, don't you want to go and punch them or beat them up or do this and that? And he's like, I wanted the right for people to do and say things they are free to do and say. Yep. I don't like it. I think they're a dirtbag for doing that. But I didn't, you know, when I say I mean him, didn't do this for the glory of it or the benefits of it or the money of it. It's like, I have a belief system. I have something I want to uphold. That's why I'm doing it.
Is there anything that you can talk about that is Tri-Counter related versus federal politics? I know you can spin national news in the podcast, but it is Youngstown Talk Channel. Just a suggestion, what's going on in our area. That is a great point. And
except I think national is going on in our area.
Well, it dominates, and it's annoying that it dominates. And I feel like on local politics, we end up picking on how things are rather than elevating stuff.
Yeah.
Right? One thing from yesterday, and thank you, Jerry, for that suggestion. I appreciate it. One thing that we didn't get to comment on yesterday during the MLO Bros show, we had a caller that got a federal grant for employment. Okay. And that's one thing in this area I think is really difficult to get a handle on. And, you know, we were a manufacturer base. You can come out of high school, you can get a job in the plant. You didn't have to do very much training. You just knew you had a secure job that paid relatively well when you came out of school. Now my son is going through, training, and I'm almost certain that the rest of the, nation is going to poach him out of this area once his specialization is realized and has market value. And so looking forward, like, what do you do in a population, in a place that is kind of stuck in the manufacturing world? And I want them to attract my kid back into this world, use his talents and support his, local economy and the people who live here. And that's a tough battle at this point. I don't have a good angle on it where I can present what I would say to him. Take it on the chin, make less money, do it because your community will rally on you and support you. It's a rough ask.
Yeah, it is. How do you feel about that idea of sticking with doing what you enjoy doing and maybe even what you think your area needs versus what is available, what is making money, even if it's not something you want to do or have that skill set of or desire to do? Or I feel like I did that for a lot of my life. Luckily I was fortunate enough to be in a position that I had this luxury. Many people don't, but I had the option of doing what I wanted, even if there wasn't a lot of money there. Whereas a lot of people are like, I just got to make money, and it might be something I don't like to do. What do people do if they get out into the workforce and they're like, I have a passion for something. How do I make money doing it?
Well, that would have to have we'll take the local area. If the culture was fulfilling your passions, then you'd create a bunch of capitalists, right? Because the likelihood that you're going to take your passion and dream and be utilized by somebody else in the way that you would want to be utilized is almost zero, low probability. So when somebody has a passion, they dream it up, and all the utilities and functions of an area support you and help you start the business doing that thing, and then serving the other people who don't want to do that for themselves, right? So if I could take this area and make it pro-capitalist and get the ideals of capitalism and create a bunch of entrepreneurs that come out of high school, start businesses as the standard, right? Then you go get to do what you normally want to do, but that you're passionate to. But so long that you are unwilling to do that, you're going to work for somebody else. And if you're surrounded by innovators, that would be super easy, right? Because then there would be things that exist that are owned by people that are, entrepreneurs, and then likelihood goes up that you would be able to work in your passion. But as long as it's just, if you got a workforce or you got a community full of workforce and there's no engineers, trained engineers kind of thing, then it's going to be slim pickings for finding that, where you should be kind of thing. I would say 90% of people are not where they should be.
Yeah. Do you think our area is conducive to supporting people who want to start a business?
No, it's the opposite.
Yeah.
I contemplate this on a regular basis. I am beholden to the people of this area, and that's the only reason that I'm still, here. They're much bigger markets. There are much better economies that I could be making a much better living at. And so long that that's a truth, it means that if an auditor came in and told me where I should go and what I should do, they would not choose to stay here at all. Right. And it's because, like I said, we're inheriting the manufacturing mentality, and what everybody wants is a single industry to come into town, hire all of its people, leverage that company to give them above market value wages, and then everybody will be happy making more than they should be making elsewhere. Now it's the opposite of that, where everybody's undervalued. Everybody is making less than they should. Like if a position here pays $60,000 a year and 2 states away, that same position pays double that, right? Then the auditor would also say that person staying here, right? My family lives here only goes so far, when it means you can chase down your prosperity.
Yeah. I've heard a lot of times in my life, people say, why don't you go here? Why don't you go there? If this is what you're interested in, go live here where that's prevalent. And I'm like, I don't want to live there.
That's exactly right. So that's your choices there. Either you make concessions on working things that are not within your passion for the sake of those things that are hard to measure in that direction, whether or not you live in Florida and like the weather, or your family's close by, or you like the school system. And then so if you add up all of those fringe benefits and they're greater than, I'm not working in a job, a position, or an industry that I'm super passionate about, you made that choice.
Yeah. Some people are like, hey, I want to go where it's warmer. I want to live on the beach.
Exactly right.
I want to whatever. And I'll do whatever I have to make money for that.
Yeah.
Well, I want my daily life, my every Monday through Friday to not be miserable.
Right.
So it's like, I want to do what I want to do.
Yep.
In an area that I like.
That's exactly right. And if that were possible, like, you would have entrepreneur-minded people. Entrepreneurs different in this way. They will make chasing their passion. They will make concessions and sacrifices in areas that are uncomfortable. So if you're like, oh, I want the thing, but the cost of the thing is this, I don't want to get, then the choice is made that you're willing to erode your passions to take the consistency or the safety or whatever. And it's okay. But I just think we need to cultivate more people that are willing to make those sacrifices to create their passions and whatnot.
Yeah. I came back here. Gotta be 2 years this summer. I came back and I heard so often, why would you come back here? I can't believe you left. I was in a whole other state for almost 15 years and I can't believe you would come back. And what are you doing here? And blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, I just don't see what you're seeing. Like, to me, this is home. This has always been home. We consider living other places long-term, but I still just say, okay, as long as we can go home to visit so many times a year, then I'll live elsewhere. But it's like, family is here. I was raised here. I've got friends here. I don't mind the weather, so it's like, I don't have any huge negative ideas about this area. I left and I've got negatives about where I went and good things. So it's always like, what do you make out of it? Can you make something where you are? Can you kind of find that spot where it is the job you want, the family life you want, the school system you want, the weather you want? What are you willing to concede?
I read that book, Utopia, and it does not not exist.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing, that the choice that you make on the other side just has different complications. You don't get to not have the complications. So you're just choosing different ones. So you might say the grass is green on the other side or whatever. So you don't like your current mate, right? That one over there looks good, which is better in one direction. You get over there and like, this one's imperfect too, but in this department. So that's what we're doing is we're in the utopia, we are looking for the perfect setting, and yet the perfect setting never exists. So we're in the constant pursuit.
Yeah. So do you think someone could sort of make whatever they want in our area here in Youngstown?
It could. You could.
Might be difficult, but they could.
Impossible. I'm going to say it's possible and impossible.
Wait a minute, it's impossible or they could.
Yeah, but you can make it possible, but you also wouldn't choose it for different reasons than you would choose it. So let's just say, let's create some utopia here.
Okay.
So I'm going to put AI in charge. Okay. That it's going to evaluate every single person in our area, and it's going to basically list all of their skill sets. So things that make them happy, things that make them sad, whatever. It's also going to then evaluate family and things that make you happy in your family life, the things that you like to be around and the things that you like to do. It's going to weigh all of that stuff in. And all it's going to do is orient you and send you a text message every day and say, this is what you should do. Right? Now free will is kind of taken away from you. And we don't like when the mathematical support of what we should do is different than the mathematical support of what we want to do. So the deal is that when you look down to it, your free will is making you happy in one direction because it was your choices, right?
Yeah.
And if it deprives you of what you want, you're still happier because it's free will. What if I took your freedoms away? You're wearing a freedom shirt, so I figured that was
freedom.
Took your freedom, and I'm going to make all the decisions for you. I'm going to tell you what to eat. I'm going to tell you where to go. I'm going to tell you what to do, and I'm making 100% all calculated, perfect decisions. Could you be happy being completely dominated by another human being or force? You wouldn't like that one, right?
Yeah.
Now everything's perfect. You are in utopia. You now live there. Are you complaining? I want some free will and choices, right?
It's too good. I'm bored.
Too good on board, right? I got everything that I wanted.
There's
feel
no
empty.
Goal to work towards.
And you don't even have the chance to go and be a little erratic and be a little rebellious in your spirit. So once you get there, it's just looking in the direction that you came from. So it's a balance between those things. And that's why like a lot of the wisdoms that you hear get cliched and cheesy at this point. But if you dig into them, they're telling you exactly what to do in those wisdoms.
I have taken those.
Man, did we get deep on this?
I know. I have taken those quizzes online where you'd like answer all these questions and it tells you what you should do, like what field you should be in and everything. And then I'm always like, great, where, how, what do I do with that?
Right. But to Jerry's point, how do you make that happen? Is the natural consequence that, our area ends up being a bastion of technology accidentally, or does it take me? I mean, I talk the business side of things because that's, where my passions are. And, I think a lot of the prosperity of the area is going to come from forward-looking people that do unpopular things and somehow rope the community and supporting them without destroying them. That is where this thing falls through, quite a bit. Or like I said, will it just be an emergence where somebody comes to town, an Amazon distribution center gets plopped down in the middle of it, and we're like, oh, that's awesome, filled a bunch of money, and all of our politicians appropriately reacted to it and treated it like the virtue that it was, and everybody lives happily ever after? Doesn't seem very likely, right?
Yeah. Well, I also said too, when I moved back here, now granted, I was gone for quite a while, so I'm sure this happened maybe over time, maybe instantly. I don't even know. When I first moved away, and I didn't move away, because I hated the area. I moved away because I was with a military person and I had to go where he was. But I used to come back in the beginning. I would come visit. And I remember like being downtown Youngstown and coming to visit. And I remember saying, God, I feel like I'm in Gotham City. This just looks and feels like Gotham City. It's just, I can't wait to go back down south. Over time, that started to change. And when we decided to move back, I was like, it is different here. Everybody says, well, why would you leave and come back? To me, from being gone so long, this area is not what it was when I left. It is better. It looks better. It feels better. There's more going on than there was when I left. What do you attribute that to? Is it just sort of what I'm seeing with fresh eyes? Or would you say over a 10, 15 year period, something was put into the works that made things better?
And I've watched a lot of people sort of martyr themselves to getting that stuff to happen. I can give you probably a list of 20 people who said, this is what we want. This is what the people want. And they did it. They sacrificed themselves. It did not end very well. Right. But it was through the collection of it. It almost reminds me of when the soldiers run off the boat and they get killed like on first shot. Well, their job was to take the bullet so the next guy in line did not get shot, and they make a little bit more progress, and then he goes down. But by the 20th round of it, because of all the other fodder that's out on the battlefield, without the first round, the ones that took the shots, the next ones couldn't come, would never have reached the beach, kind of a thing. So those people made that sacrifice, and it's just the sheer will of people willing to make that sacrifice to end up getting enough ground made up that now something sticks. You do get community that believes in you. It's not just another blimp factory or whatever. And then eventually someone will earn into that maybe doesn't even deserve it as much as the sacrificial first line of defense or first line of offense. But it will still make it happen as long as we're willing to keep those sacrificial people going.
Yeah. And Jerry, I'm not sure if Jerry's still watching. Jerry, do you have any pros, cons about this area, or things you'd like to see done in this area, or things you're glad have been done? I know when I moved back, like the mall, I remember seeing Steel Valley and an ice rink and a soccer field and all this stuff. And I was like, whoa, how cool is that? Has that been a good thing? Did I hear the ice rinks going away?
Is it? I did not hear that.
I might have made that up. I don't know. I thought I heard.
Well, I know they took new ownership. An outside group bought that complex. So it will probably become other things. But every time I saw it, I think the stuff that they put down there was, pretty popular. Concerts and the sports fields are always occupied, and the ice rink. So it's popular. So there's community supporting it.
They always had like the rib burn off in the parking lot of the mall. But now when you go to, they don't call it the rib burn off, I don't think anymore. They call it
Rib
something.
Fest.
Yeah, the Rib Fest. But now it's on like this nice turf and this nice area, and there's a lot more going on there. And I was like, oh, this seems like it's gotten better.
Yeah.
From what I was used to.
All right, we're going to wrap it up.
Yeah.
I'm ready. I got a ton of things to do today. Next week, we will have a full week's worth of shows. We'll take I'm going to take Jerry's advice here and look into some local things that I can have an opinion on. You do the same. I know we have a whole bunch of politicians lined up. We're going to talk some state legislators, some mayors, talk about some economic development and, forward-looking things. Like we can't. My fear is our area wraps itself around one industry and goes all in on another industrial base, right?
Yeah.
So if we take on something fresh and new, but we go too far deep into it, we don't spread that different industries out, then we're going to be single dimensional again and, tempting fate again to destroy something that, you have too much exposure to. So,
and anybody that has other topics they want to hear discussed, by all means, get involved.
There you go. All right. Have a good weekend, everyone. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this show on Youngstown Studio. This is original Youngstown content. Feel free to share our videos and tell your friends about us. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook. Thank you for your support.